Yeah, cool. So how many of us are there? Why don't you just kick us off? Just in the chat, introduce yourself, say hi, and when you are moving to South Africa, or if you're already in South Africa. Yeah. Beth, can you hear me now? I just see, should I hear anything yet? Where's Beth?
Yeah, that's Beth right there in the middle.
Okay, great.
So everybody's hearing everything okay? Okay. Do you want to type a quick chat as to where you're from? Or, I mean, you can turn on your microphone too and talk if you prefer. Anyone?
Okay, I can go. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I live in Kiev, Ukraine. I'm English. And I previously to this we were in Harare, Zimbabwe for 4 years. My husband, we're in international schools. My husband's a teacher. My kids go to the schools that he teaches at. Anyway, and so now we're in Kiev and we're really missing Southern Africa in general. It's been a huge culture shock for us. Yeah. I mean, amazing to be here, but equally just we're like missing Africa. And so we're looking for jobs to return. And so potentially there's a job in Johannesburg that we would start next school year in September. So we're just looking ahead, obviously doing a lot of research about Johannesburg. That's why. So
amazing. That's very exciting. Thanks, Ben.
You're welcome.
Oh, and then we have Mara and Tanner.
Hey, Mara.
So you both are together and Mara will speak for you. I don't think you got your microphone on. Mara? Oh, I got your message. So you're moving, you're in Utah and Chicago and Denver respectively. Okay, and moving in January. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh,
that must be Tanner. Hi, Tanner.
Yeah. Hey, so Mara and I got married last year. We're students, and I'll be starting a job in Joburg in January. So we're excited.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you all so much.
Cool.
We didn't realize there was an online community. So this is cool to be able to connect with people trying to answer the same questions we are.
That's what we all would have liked to have, yeah.
But this is the first one, Tanner, as well. So, you have to tell us how it goes and give us feedback.
Okay.
Shall I crack on? Shall we crack on?
Why don't you?
Okay, so we thought it would be useful to just run through some of the common things, but feel free to stop us at any time, put something in the chat, or come off mute and just chip in. There's not that many of us, so it's very easy to just come off mute and say, I'm really worried about this, or I didn't quite understand what you're talking about. So the subject is 5 mistakes to avoid when moving to South Africa. I'm not sure if anyone has already moved, but if you have, it would be great for you to also share your experiences with us. So I am Hannah, and I'm founder of Translating Me, which is an online community to support people moving to South Africa. Sam, do you want to introduce yourself?
So I'm Sina Tima, and I lived in South Africa from 2010 to the end of 2012 and have since moved back to the United States. We're a family of 6. We have 4 now, 4 teenagers. One's actually already in his 20s, and originally from Germany. but American, we've lived in America before, moved to South Africa, and then came back to the US. So I have a lot of experience, I guess, with the older set of children and schools and that type of thing. And also the experience of moving back after having been in South Africa, and, can probably help with that as well.
Cool. Thank you. Okay. So the first mistake most expats move, and if you've already done a move, I'm sure you can also relate to this, is people don't pack their mental toughness. Moving is a series of change, and similar to the 5 phases of grief, there's also 5 stages to adapt to the change and transition. And often this graph is criticized because it's more like this, like a zigzag rather than the nice floaty curves, and that you will have, particularly in that first year, incredible highs. If you're climbing Table Mountain, or you realize you've got a house with a swimming pool and life's amazing, mixed with the really lows, and you miss home and nothing works and you just want to buy a car and you're stuck in the middle of nowhere. So this curve is just really interesting and meant to be encouraging that it does get better. And also to expect that there will be some downs, and that's completely normal. So if you find yourself not really wanting to get out, or crying, or missing home, just be kind to yourself. That's completely normal. So usually the majority of people have a slight peak when everything's exciting and new, and then a sudden crash when we realize, crap, this isn't going to get any better, and then come up for air, and then it will kind of adapt and usually then kind of flatlines the longer that you stay, and if you ever become fully native.
And it sounds like some of you are first-time expats or to be, and then some of you, like Beth, you've moved obviously already to be where you are. But it's interesting that I think every expat goes through that. Even if you're a very seasoned expat, you'll probably end up, sitting down one day and just crying your heart out over some silly little thing. Like, I remember when my daughter I first took all my kids to school, and my daughter was like sort of standing to the side and not being, really integrated by her class. And it was just such a sad picture to me that I just went home and cried. And needless to say, we loved South Africa for the 3 years that we were there. So everybody gets to their low point, and it's okay. And sometimes just, okay to wallow in it a little bit.
So the second mistake that expats tend to make is we stay at home, and particularly in South Africa, the number of people that I meet that are too scared to leave the house in that first 2 weeks or month period is amazing, or are too scared to drive at night, or too scared to drive. So our advice is to get out, basically, which is much easier said than done. But just do one thing every day that gets you out of your comfort zone. The benefit of South Africa is that the majority of people speak English. So if English is your first language, or at least you don't have that barrier to go with. But yeah, so just basically get out. Say yes.
And Hannah and I had before this started, we put together sort of a list of resources as well to give you afterwards, and we'll be, I guess, sending or emailing or somehow getting that out to you. And we've got some links for you to click on, articles that we've either written or other people have written about things to do. And so in this particular stay home category, I've included, for instance, some of what you can actually do in Johannesburg. Can I get a quick show of hands? Is everybody moving to Joburg or other places in South Africa? Joburg. Everybody, okay. Yeah, so I've got some resources on like just things to do as a family or with visitors or however you want, and sightseeing tours, there is so much to do. And what Hannah was saying about being afraid, I think applies to most everybody who first gets to South Africa, because you've heard all the terrible things that one can hear about it. And so the thing is, there's a lot of guided tours that are completely safe, and they're a great way to get out without being scared and to get to know other people as well. So that's...
We also offer 2 events every month. So there you go. There's 2 things that you can do.
Yeah.
The next one is that if you are coming to South Africa as a spousal, so because your partner is working and they have the work permit, and so therefore you are a spouse, you are not coming as an equal by any means. And so therefore you can't open a bank account in your own name, and even a joint bank account, you don't get the same kind of access and privileges. So it's quite important, if you're opening a joint bank account, that the person that has the work permit is really specific and says, I want my partner to have complete access, or she pays all the bills, so needs that access, or you just share an online login. But the other thing that you need to get used to is that every time you spend anything on the account, you get a text message. So for the first month, my husband would constantly get text messages every time I'd done any shopping anywhere or spent anything. So I was like, geez. But also the same with a car. So in order to purchase a car here, you first of all need to have the money. So you need to have opened a bank account to have the money on shore, to be able to make the payment. And then you then will need, as the person that has the work permit, will have to go and get a traffic number.
And I can probably actually took some notes. I just read through an old blog post I wrote about that. So if you read my blog, it's called Joburg Expat. You may have seen it already. You'll find oodles of articles on buying the car, because it pretty much consumed my life for about 2 months, the first 2 months. And again, we'll have links for you to click on where you get all the information specifically. So you don't really have to take notes now, but the traffic register number on buying a car is a thing that foreigners need in South Africa, and a lot of locals don't know that. So I've written about how to go about getting one and what documents you need and all of that. But like Hannah said, the mistake that people make is that they think they can just go ahead and do that, and you really need the person with the work visa. So Tanner, in your case, that would be you, I guess, to be the one going to the actual office, bringing all the documents and applying for it. And because if you don't do that, then you basically end up going again with the person, because they tell you you're the wrong person, you can't really do it. Generally in South Africa, I mean, bureaucracy is a huge topic that would probably consume a whole webinar all by itself, but you basically want to show up anywhere that you go with more documents than you can possibly imagine, just to be safe. So in my blog posts, I usually have a list of what you should bring. And even if some offices don't require that, it's better to just go ahead and have it.
In fact, it's better to have and carry around with you at all times, at least for the first 2 months, a certified copy of your passport and a copy of your lease. Those 2 documents you will constantly get asked for. Even when sometimes parking your car, the amount of information you have to hand over is ridiculous. And it's a hang-up thing from apartheid, that the amount of personal information you have to keep giving over. So just get used to it. And the other thing, when you are going to the traffic register department, take a book and take some snacks and just suck it up. You can get frustrated, you can get annoyed, but the only person that loses out is you, because it's the way it works and you're not going to change it. I wrote a blog post very recently on to bribe or not to bribe. And it was after I'd been to see Trevor Noah. If you haven't heard of Trevor Noah, he is a comedian and gives great insights into South African way of life, and is hilarious. He's absolutely brilliant. So I would highly recommend his book, which is called Born a Crime, and I would Google him to watch some of his stuff. But he says a great sketch about giving a cool drink to the police officers in America. And actually, I would advise that now. It's not bribery, it's just making somebody's day a bit nicer. So take some Coke or a cool drink along with you to give.
That is so very true.
Not very much. So
yeah.
See, there's my screen's flashing, but I can't get to it.
It looks okay here. Let me just, is anybody interested in more specific information on bank accounts, or do you want to move on?
Oh, you're just loving the Trevor Noah. Yeah, that's good. I'm glad he's becoming a bit of a global icon.
Yeah, he's a staple here.
A bank account question, great.
What, I guess what amount of time do we have to wait before we can start the process to get a bank account? I assume we have to have our visa, but we also have to have the lease, correct?
Hannah, yes, I think I'm pretty sure you need the lease agreement as well. What you also kind of need is like a letter of reference from your current bank. They'd like to see that I'm not really sure how it actually looks. My husband handled that side, but they want to have something from your current bank that I guess says that you're in good standing. Hannah, do you have experience? Is that your experience too?
Yeah, when we first arrived, we didn't actually have our work permits. So we were able to open a foreigner's bank account at FNB. But that was a bit of a palaver. But I think you probably, if you don't have a lease, then maybe your contract from work might be okay, or just the contract from the guest house or the hotel that you're staying at also would help.
Or even just a letter from your employer that says that you're employed by them. And
yeah,
what also helps is to have money to put into your account. So I would say, Tanner, it's something that you probably want to do in person when you're there. I see the question. Do any expats just use their foreign bank account? That is a question I've actually addressed. Again, I'm going to send links after this to, it's called Opening a Bank Account in South Africa, and I wrote a whole blog post about it. You can do that, but there are several reasons why it's better to have a local bank account. One of them is it's just nice to have a constant supply of cash in South Africa because it's much more cash-based than here in the US. And also you really don't, when you have a bank account back at home but not in South Africa, then you're prone to making bigger transfers. Like when you go to a bank machine, to an ATM, you probably want to get more money to make the fees worth it. And, that's not that great of an idea in South Africa. You want to not have that much money on you. And then thirdly, I think the most important reason you want to have a local bank account is that South Africans do electronic funds transfer quite a bit, like internet banking. Everything is called EFT. Everything works via EFT. So, your gardener will want to be paid in EFT, your child's violin lessons, your school fees, everything is an EFT, and people will just give you their ID or their number, and then you do your EFT from home. And it's just a very convenient way to do business. And if you don't have that, it's just much more difficult, I think, to function.
And also paying staff if you have a gardener, or for example, just this weekend I bought a shweshwe picnic blanket from a Zimbabwean lady, and I could pay her via a thing called e-wallet, which basically sends her a PIN number and she can go and get the cash out of any cash machine, which is just phenomenal. So the ease of life, it would be much easier and simpler for you to get a South African bank account because everything is done through EFT and people expect to be paid that way. even when staying at a guest house or other things. So yeah, I'm with.
There's actually another reason why you probably don't want to just have a home bank account, and that is the risk of fraud, because then how are you going to get your statements from your home bank account to South Africa? And I would strongly suggest to not have them mailed to your South African home, because this is something that happened to us, and I think to other people too, where, you know, the mail service is just not very safe in South Africa. So you just don't want to send anything financial, especially when they're sending you your new card and then they send you the PIN number like a few weeks later to keep it safe. All those documents are prone to being hijacked, and then, you know, somebody will try and gain access to your bank account overseas with some kind of Nigerian scheme, you know, and most banks are pretty good at, you know, weeding that out, but it can happen that, you know, I've heard stories where your foreign bank account was somehow hacked into with information that came in the mail.
A question here in the chat: is there a particular bank that's safer than the others? All the banks are safe. You know, I want to reiterate again, the crime does happen here, but the banks are safe, and it's safe. I walk around, I walk my dog every single day. I run, I walk my children to the park, I walk up to restaurants, and I live in a freestanding house, and I have done for 7 years. So it is a reality here, but everyday life happens and you embrace it, and it is a lot of fun. So
one thing as far as safety, yes, banks are all safe. I totally agree with that. And they are all also equal in a sense, I think, right, Hannah, would you say? So there's the big four are like Nedbank, Standard Bank, FNB, and the one with the ABSA. So those are the big four, and they're all pretty similar, and they also charge higher fees than U.S. banks do. So you're going to get used to the fact that you have to pay higher fees for all sorts of transactions. So I would say they're all pretty similar in customer service, and they're safe. As far as safety goes, what I would suggest in selecting your bank is, like Hannah was saying, I would go with a bank where you can get to an ATM that's close to your neighborhood, because, you know, where you know your way around, where you feel safe and everything. That to me would be more important than, you know, the exact amount of fees that you might pay. You're gonna want to get cash.
We bank with Investec, which are fabulous and really easy to then transfer internationally. So Investec is one to look into, and the other one I would say is the most popular is FNB. And the reason that FNB is most popular is because of their mobile technologies. So the stuff I just said about the e-wallet, and also they are linked to Discovery Health plans. And so they give you all kinds of e-bucks, and the majority of people are with FNB, but they're all much of a muchness. So the other thing just to mention is that there's less and less cash now in South Africa. So there's SnapScan and Zapper on your phone. So those are two good apps to download and get connected straight away. And then you can easily pay for stuff just on your phone.
Hannah, do you know anything about Citibank or HSBC? That was a question on the chat. I personally don't.
HSBC made us sign up for their premier whatever, told me they were in South Africa, and they're not. It's a lie. They have one head office here. They don't have any branches. Citibank, I'm not sure. I can check, and I'll get back to you, Meredith.
I don't really see the sense. If you're going to open an account, I would go with a local bank, just because of all the things that we just mentioned.
The apps I said are, I'll put it in here, Zapper and SnapScan. I don't know if they're South African though, so again, you might have to have a South African bank account first before you have those, Nina. Cool. I thought that I want to show you these, even though we briefly just talked about the cars, because you're going to get used to seeing this. Like, the amount of packing that goes on top of a car is a skill in itself. And then the amount of people that can also fit in a bucky is remarkable. So the road health and safety here is something to get used to. I'm sure the same in Zimbabwe, but yeah, there's no real public infrastructure for transportation, so people have to get from A to B somehow. But certainly cars don't fail roadworthy tests quite as strictly as they do elsewhere.
Hannah, can I go back before you move on to the next one? I just remembered something on the banks again. When you do go to the bank, like Hannah was saying earlier, you want to make sure you go with your spouse who has the, the work permit, and you set it up so you all have equal access to it, even if they balk at it. The other thing you want to make sure is that they use your name exactly the right way, the way you have it in your passport, and with the exact same spelling. We ran into quite some problems when my name was spelled differently. I think it was even a typo, or maybe the middle initial was missing or something like that. And then our TV programming stopped at some point in time because they weren't accepting our bank draft to pay for it. And the reason was that the name didn't match the bank. So stuff like that will trip you up. So it's important to set that up the right way to begin with.
The only other thing as well is foreign exchange is really tight here. So you can't exchange any money unless you have a plane ticket booked. And also the exchange controls coming into the country are a nightmare. So really you want to be paid in Rand, or have some money paid in Rand, or have that monthly income already set up and coming in, because it will take at least a week to get money through the system, and expect lots of phone calls and asking why you're bringing money into the country. And
the other thing is, if you do get your hands on US dollars in cash, it is a good idea to hold on to just a little bit of that, even though you'll have cash at your house. Just because if you travel within Africa, like Zimbabwe is a good example, or, wherever you go, you'll need US dollars in cash, or euros are fine too, but you'll need some kind of foreign currency cash. And to get that when you don't have it in South Africa, even though you have a dollar account back home, is quite a pain. Like Hannah said, you have to show your bank that you have a plane ticket. It's very bureaucratic. It took me 3 trips one time for just $500 that we needed for tips, for porter tips when we climbed Kilimanjaro. So stuff like that, it's just good to have a stash of dollars. Even South Africans keep US dollars around for that reason.
Okay. Moving on. So a friend of mine actually cut his finger off the day after he arrived. And he had absolutely no idea where to go or what to do, or even if he had any medical aid. So just make sure before you arrive, or as soon as you arrive, you know your plan of emergency. You know who you are covered with healthcare wise. You know where the nearest hospital is that has an emergency department, and how you're going to get there, because there isn't just the state-run ambulances. Well, I think there might be state-run ambulances, but they're going to take you 10 hours to get to you. So again, we have a list of numbers, put them in your phone. And my conversation with we've got a nanny who's phenomenal, but also with babysitters. I have always had the conversation of, if there ever was any sort of emergency, we've got panic buttons in the house or on the keys, and we've got security that drive around that would be here much quicker than any ambulance would. So to phone them first, or to hit that button first, before even phoning me. Yeah. So, and the other thing, if you do have a nanny or a housekeeper, then I have also made it a condition of their contract that they always have 10 Rand airtime on their phone. And I will happily give them that 10 Rand, but we don't have a house phone here. So they can do the request call back, but it's just easier if at all times they have 10 rand on their phone.
So there is a list of emergency phone numbers that will also pass on to you afterwards. It's not like 911 is the universal number. There are different phone numbers depending on what you need. And ambulances are not, not funded by the state. They're private enterprises. So like Netcare 911 is a service that's private that you want to keep the number around for, because that's, who you'll likely want to call. I agree with Hannah, though, that the best place to get emergency help is probably your estate office, because they have security people who have some basic training too in how to handle emergencies. But I do think you want to keep that Netcare 911 number on your fridge. And then there's a different number for when you call from a cell phone. So you want to program all yours and your kids' cell phones with that phone number. And just make sure you also sort of think about which hospital in an emergency you would want to go to, maybe even as you're, settling in sort of routine in South Africa, go visit that hospital, see how the parking works, see where it is, go to the trauma entrance, just kind of like familiarize yourself with it. And I would just go with the closest one. The private hospitals in South Africa are all very, very good. And there's one in pretty much every suburb. So I would just pick the one that's closest and make that sort of your go-to place, and also have those phone numbers posted. And the same goes for doctors and pediatricians. Hannah and I have a little different background in that, because she gave birth in South Africa. So she kind of entered the whole medical system from the ground up and had a pediatrician at a hospital to take the kids to. And we came with kids that are already in the world, and we only had like a family practice that we went to, and there's really several ones of those that the whole family goes to, even the kids, and they see the same doctor, and that worked quite nicely for us. But just go ahead and find that practice so that you sort of know who you're going to go to for your routine examinations, for your shots. If you need malaria pills, who you're going to go to get those prescriptions. Any
questions on health care or emergency stuff? Not all hospitals have an emergency department. So once you know where you're going to live, then you can check out the hospitals. But I would say Sandton Mediclinic and Four Ways Life are probably your two that you would want to go to.
Yeah.
There's Sandton Mediclinic, which is where I have my twin boys. I spent a month on bed rest. Say that again?
Would you mind repeating those three again?
Sure. Four Ways Life.
Here, I'll type it here.
Type it in the chat, yeah.
Sandton, whoops, Medi Clinic. My typing is
you.
And the other one's Morningside, which is also very good. Morningside, which I think is a Mediclinic.
Yeah. There's basically Mediclinic is the sort of brand or the parent organization, and then Life is another hospital organization, and they have different locations. Is Sunning Hill, how about Sunning Hill?
Yeah, if you're staying further out. Yeah.
That's more in the northern suburbs, Sunning Hill. But Four Ways Life, if you're an expat, you're probably going to live in that area. Or if you live more like in Sandton itself, Sandton Mediclinic will probably be the closest one.
I think if you're giving birth, you tend to go to Sandton Mediclinic, or if you want to give birth in a natural clinic, you would go to Genesis. I don't know if there's one up north, kind of a natural birthing centre.
I have not heard of that.
I haven't heard of one. So yeah, Sandton or Genesis if you need children or if you're giving birth to children.
And the way this works also, these hospitals are private, and what you'll either have your insurance from here, from the US or wherever you're coming from. You'll probably have a health insurance already set up, and you'll probably get some kind of global plan. I believe we had Aetna Global. Cigna has several like global health plans, and specifically for Africa, I believe. And what Hannah's done, I think you have a local, it's called medical aid, not, that's the name for it there.
But Discovery.
Oh yeah, bye Mara.
Bye.
See you. Contact us if you need anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and then the final point is travel. Everyone leaves it until they know that they're leaving, before they just book, like up everything. So our one piece of advice would be to start planning it. If you're here for 2 years, that will go incredibly quickly. So every month book something else. We've got a whole bucket list, and I'm sure on Joburg Expat there's also loads of travel advice. And if you want to climb, Killy.
That's the cartoon of me. But that was the last thing we did when we were in Africa, right before moving back to the US. I climbed Killy with my teenage son, my oldest son, and it was a really, really nice adventure. It's so full. I mean, South Africa in general is so full of great adventures. And that was like the culmination of our adventure, was to climb Killy. I'll never forget it. But even if you don't do that, I think Hannah's right. You just want to make a list early on. I remember we headed out to our first safari, right? Maybe after 2 weeks of living in South Africa, our container hadn't even gotten there yet, or maybe just gotten there, and it was a big mess. And I kind of felt like I wanted to really just clean up and get everything settled. And my husband said, no, let's go. This weekend is a good weekend. And, there's quite a few holidays in South Africa that you want to take advantage of. And so we headed out, and that kind of started us on always being on the move. And it was great. It really was. And I would have had so many regrets if we had waited until I felt like we were settled in completely. That would have wasted probably a whole year. And we saw so many things that first year, and also started feeling more comfortable about living there and making friends. We actually traveled quite a bit with friends as well that we met there. So that was also really nice.
And it's so cheap. Again, we can give you lots of sites that once you get your work permits, it gives you access to kind of local rates in terms of all of the parks, safari parks, and then also last minute deals on some fantastic websites. If you want, I can type them into the chat if you want to start looking and getting excited about that too. But you won't be able to use them till you're here and you'll have some sort of temporary visa.
Hannah, did you ever use bushbreaks.coza? Yeah. That's a great website or organization.
Empty Beds is another good one.
Empty Beds, yeah.
Yeah, empty and then beds.
Empty Beds, right?
Yeah.
Like that.
And then also I will send you out a moving planner that has every checklist and item that you could think of. And inside that also I can send you out a South African packing list. But Joburg Expat also has, I think yours was 19 things to put in your shipment or something?
Mine is actually, what should you buy before you move to South Africa? 19 things. And I've got links to Amazon of all the things that, just based on our family, we felt like we should get before. Of course, we didn't know this before. We bought all this like as we went on home leave and packed our suitcases full of stuff. So
for me, I would say medicines. I miss Lemsip, which is a British thing, but when I've got a cold, the one here is rubbish. Med Lemon, it's rubbish. And also children's toys are pretty expensive. Anything that's imported is expensive here. So iPhone, Apple, and then even stuff like Hoovers, coffee machines, kitchen appliances.
Just a word of caution, if you're coming from the US, you're not going to want to buy any of that because the voltage is going to trip you up. That was a pun.
Yeah. But if you're Europe, then it's the same.
I have a whole chapter on the voltage issue. And I also have chapters on Kindle, buying a Kindle. Like, I think books are very expensive in South Africa. And if you have children, but even if you don't have children, you'll just want to get a Kindle or, you know, the Kindle app on your iPad or something and buy books, buy ebooks. You know, my kids kind of stopped reading when we went to South Africa because the library system there isn't very great either. And I finally just invested in Kindles, and it was the best thing we ever did. They now don't use them anymore, but they used them religiously when we lived there.
Amazing. Yeah, and like book sets. So, you know, if you have small children, like the famous Five or Beatrix Potter or all that stuff that would be really heavy to bring out when you're flying.
Oh, internet. I see the question. Oh, children's books. Yeah. Internet. So AfriHost is the company that we were happy with. Hannah, do you use them too?
It's all changed.
It's all changed. Okay, you probably should talk about that then.
So now there's fiber, and yes, it is expensive, but at least we have the ability to be able to do things like this, which we didn't have 5 years ago. So it depends on where you live, again, who you go with, but you will need, your house will probably by now have the Vumatel fiber connection. And then from there, you choose a service provider. So we're with Cool Ideas, which are a local based startup, and they've been absolutely fantastic. The other thing is that Facebook groups are massive here. So again, depends where you live, but there's an I Love Fourways, there's an I Love Parkhurst, I think are the two biggest, and all of that kind of stuff is suburb based. So you can just put on there what internet provider is the best. You can also, as soon as you're at the airport, pick up a mobile phone. And if you do that, then you don't need all the paperwork that you need once you're outside the airport, if that makes sense. So again, they're quite hot on data I don't even know why. I think it's because people run up huge phone bills, but you will need a copy of your lease, a certified copy of your passport to go and get even a prepaid phone. Whereas if you just do it straight at the airport, I'm pretty sure you don't need any of that.
So did you say that AfriHost no longer provides internet, or do they still provide internet?
I'm pretty sure they do, but I'm not sure if they are the best provider. There's so many more options now since fiber has
so is it Google Fiber or just fiber? Is it provided by Telkom?
It's provided by Vuma. I can't get onto the chat. My thing isn't working. VUTMA, I think. But again, it's everywhere where you can hear. It would be really easy to do. Okay, let's have a look.
I just typed something. So somebody had a question, and I'll get back to the adapters, Tanner, but somebody asked about secondhand shops and things. So Gumtree.coza is like a website, you know, like a buy-sell kind of website where you can, you know, find pretty much anything. For cars, we use something called autotrader.coza, but there's other ones too. But Gumtree also sells cars.
I would be a bit skeptical about using Gumtree to buy a car.
Yes, I agree. But AutoTrader was very reputable. And there's also dealerships you can go to for that.
And the dealerships will do all your paperwork for you. So that's an advantage. There's also Facebook group Trailing Spouses, the most horrendous name ever, but they have cars being sold by expats that are leaving. And there's also a massive, I will find out the name of it, like it's got millions of people in, buy, swap, sell, Johannesburg or something.
And then somebody asked about flea markets. The Rosebank Rooftop Market, and that'll be on my What to Do in Joburg list, is a great place to just go on a Sunday. It's every Sunday in Rosebank, and you can buy all sorts of African art and food and antiques and flea market items. So that's just more for fun. I mean, I don't think I would go there to get furniture for my house, but it's great to just collect collect art, I guess. And then Tanner, are you still there? You asked about adapters. So an adapter really doesn't help you with the voltage. An adapter will just help you with the plug. And for that, actually, that's on my list of things to buy before you move to South Africa, is the correct adapter plug that's universal, that you just put into the outlet, and then you can plug in either US cords or European cords. The funny thing in South Africa is if you buy an appliance there, most likely it'll have a Euro plug and not a South African plug on it, like a light or anything, appliance for your kitchen. So you're gonna need those adapters anyway. So it's good to have the universal kind where you can plug the US based stuff in it as well. But be careful with just plugging it in, because you're gonna want a transformer for certain things that actually transforms the voltage. Again, I can give you guys that link as well to my blog post about that, but a transformer is quite a heavy thing, and it's expensive. A good one will be like $80. But for certain items, it's worth having. I have one here in my kitchen for my coffee maker, which I bought in South Africa. So, you'll need a transformer for items like that. Some things you can't transform the voltage of, like your vacuum cleaner or your hair dryer. They just won't. You just have to buy a new one.
Cool.
Does that answer the question?
Something about walking, jogging. Beth? Yes.
Oh,
Yes. I run every day in the parks and have done for 7 years. I go at peak times, and I have a dog. So I go in the mornings, or I go around 4 o'clock in the afternoons. And I live down in the parks area. So it's not in an estate at all. It's just a public park, and they are packed every Saturday and Sunday, full of kids, and beautiful. And then if you live on an estate, then also they have great parks and rivers and kids play areas and tennis courts and everything. So you will be outside. And then if you like cycling, my goodness, they're lycra crazy here and go off out into the cradle and all around there. So there's massive cycling, and there's also, I've started doing trail running, and there's great trail running events all over South Africa, which I have loved, and it's very South African. So often I'm the only expat there, and they've just been so much fun.
So a lot of these things you do as a group, cycling or running or whatever, and it's actually great because you get to meet other people. If you're into photography, there's the Joburg photo walkers that go out every Sunday and go into certain areas just to take good pictures. There's a sketching one that does, that paints and sketches. There's all sorts of stuff like that as well that gets you out and about if you want to be less physical and just, do other things as a group and get out. Somebody had a question about leasing. Was that about a car lease? Comp one? That I've had that question before, and I don't think I ever actually found out how leasing a car works in South Africa.
Okay, honestly. I do. I know that because we did.
Okay, good.
So it was part of our package when we first moved here, that the company would provide us with a car. We got an amazing package. I think we argued that because in London we, use public transport, we needed a car. I don't know. Anyway, but the company didn't want to buy the car, which was ridiculous. So there's a company called Equestra, and they will lease you cars, but it is ridiculously expensive. So if your company is paying for it, perfect, because also then you get around that whole traffic number, you don't have to have it, and also then you don't get any fines for your whole time. So for 5 years we didn't get any fines. We were leasing our car. So I'm sure that Matt's company somewhere, or in New York somewhere, has a whole host of fines. Never figured their way back to us.
That's funny.
So yeah. Okay, cool. So I just briefly wanted to tell you about a bit more about Translating Me and our members club. Our members club was created to help you make an impact with your time here. It's pretty frustrating if you're not working and you're on a spousal visa. And so we've put together a online portal to give you all the careers advice you need, but also to give you advice on discovering and learning how to cook, or how to the history of South Africa, through to setting up your own online business. So basically the club consists of online courses as well as monthly events and the online community. So the online learning platform has courses in a number of areas, from setting up your own business, through to moving to South Africa, through to exploring more and discovering more about South Africa. Plus, we have a whole host of resources, such as the Ultimate Expat File, annual calendars, school checklists, things to ask. And also on top of that, we have a virtual assistant service. So if you want help in booking your Christmas holidays, or you want an itinerary for your in-laws that are coming over, we can help with supporting all of that. So it's just $30 a month. But if you, because you're on the webinar, I've got a special offer for if you wanted to sign up for the whole year, then we give you 3 months of the virtual assistant included in that, which you just need that extra, I don't really know what I'm doing. And so you can WhatsApp us at any time, day or night, 7 days a week, and we will get back to you. So it's peace of mind. Mm-hmm. Plus, if you sign up within the next 24 hours, we will pick you up from the airport, and we will also provide you with home cooked meals for your first week that you are here in Joburg as a welcome to Joburg. So if you have any questions on the membership club, then let me know, and I will send out the link in the email following this.
That home cooked meal sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's not done by me.
I remember my first shopping trip. That was a lot of work.
Well, precisely, you forget to eat. So the type of events is very exciting. So we just took everyone to Soweto for Heritage Day, and we went and learned how to cook pap and shakalaka, and went into somebody's house and they hosted us, and got a taxi and went to a local market. So we do stuff like that, through to, we've got an interior design event coming up at the end of October, and we introduce you to some of South Africa's best interior designers. And then this Thursday, we are doing a gallery tour where you actually meet the artists and handmade beading lady, so you can learn more about South African art. So a whole wide range of things. And then last week we did a specific careers event if you want to go freelance and start up a career. So, I didn't even say all of that, sorry, for the year is $699. So it's a one-off fee, and then you're covered for the whole year to get access to us. Yes, it's very exciting, Beth, the interior design one. Basically, it's whatever I like. I like food, and I've just bought a house that I'm redoing.
Yeah. I think earlier there was the question about moving without a company, to sponsor you in a way. And I don't think that your moving experience is going to be drastically different if you know who to talk to and take advantage of these kinds of resources. And like back when we moved, we had a company called Corporate Relocations that our employer found for us, and we dealt with them. And I have to say they weren't really that great. What Hannah is doing here, what she just described, is so much more, relevant to what you're doing, because you can ask questions that fellow expats know about. Like the company we dealt with they weren't expats, so they didn't know about the traffic register number, for instance, and said, oh, no, the dealership is going to register your car for you. But, they didn't know that we had to get that number first and things like that. So I don't think it's going to be drastically different. The visa is definitely going to be an issue to get that all sorted, and the work permit. But once you have that, I think your moving experience can be very similar. Obviously you're going to have some kind of money to pay for certain things like your health insurance and, your moving expenses and all of that. But I don't think it makes a huge difference. Do you, Hannah? I mean, I think it can be an advantage actually, because you might be faster in getting to know local people and immersing yourself in the local culture, which is really, really fun. We have so many good friends in South Africa.
Mm. Yeah, our relocation agent basically spent 2 days with me, driving me around to places that I didn't want to live. So she didn't really listen to the type of place we wanted to live in. So it was an absolute waste of time. And she didn't have I wanted to play netball, and she told me there wasn't any netball clubs. And then I later find out that there's a whole massive action netball league. So yeah, we've got contacts with immigration consultants and fantastic lawyers that can help you with the visa process. And you can get everything now online, which when we both moved to South Africa, there was nothing. And it was also out of date. So yeah, perfect. Is there any other questions? Have we covered everything? It's very exciting. Do you want to come off mute? Is anyone going to be brave enough?
Okay. Well, if anybody has any feedback about...
Yay! Well done, Nina.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, if I would love to get some feedback from you guys, like if you want to just email something about it, because this is our first webinar, and so we've never really done this before, and would love to get feedback that we can use for our next installment in a month. Right?
Yeah.
And be sure to pass it on to anybody that you know that's moving to South Africa.
Thank you.
Cool. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Take care. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Anna, lovely to see you. I just see you in there.
Thank you.
So you're coming for a look-see visit like next week?
Yeah, on the 15th.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot to do to get ready for that. Do you have any thoughts on things to make sure that we do? We're going to be there for a little less than a week.
Schools.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be a priority. Have a good steak. So I would go to a restaurant called the Local Grill, which I think is the best steak. Or go to Womble's, and then next door there's a new bar that's opened called the Rocket, which is quite fun. And yeah, I don't know.
There's so much. It's overwhelming. Definitely look at what to do in Joburg. That blog post I'm going to link to in what we send you guys. I have maybe like 25 or 30 different activities of what you can do in Joburg. And some of those might apply to just for a visitor, to pick and do. There's, if you want to get a glimpse of the animal wildlife, maybe you could scoot out to the elephant sanctuary or the cheetah center or something like that, just to get an idea of what the safaris are going to be like or what you're going to be able to see.
You bringing your kids?
No, not this.
Okay, great. Okay, cool. Perfect.
What school? So are you, do you have any school visits scheduled?
We have 3 that are set up right now, and then I think they're setting up a few more. So we are going to Danefern, although I've heard that it's a several-year wait now.
That's hard. That's so heartbreaking.
And we've got 2 of the Crawford schools, and I think one of the Redham House schools schools.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I think they just opened one this year in the Four Ways area, if I'm.
Oh, that's new. I didn't know that. Yeah.
So we have those set up, and one of our relocation person set up something with us with the British International School, but I haven't really heard very good things about it. So
yeah,
I'm not
probably
sure.
from my blog. People don't seem to have good things to say about it.
Yeah.
I have not heard one positive comment.
Yeah.
And
So
also, I think it's a waste of time. Like, if you want a British type school, go to the South African private schools. They're all ex-colonial British schools.
It kind of depends on how long. Do you know how long you're staying yet? Is it a limited time? Or?
5 years is the minimum for us.
Ooh.
Great. I would go to South African then, completely.
I agree. And we'll do a whole nother webinar on schools. But if, you know, some people only come for like maybe a year and a half or two or something like that, then they're worried about transitioning back into the American system. And sometimes it's easier to go to the American school.
Right.
But it's hugely expensive. And I think the experience would be better in a South African school. And a lot of people, like, you could go to a South African school, the prep school, and then you could go, if you stayed long enough, your kids could go to something like St. John's, which offers the A levels for, you know, the British system. So I have really good friends who did that, and their kids are now back in the US and they're doing great.
Right. Our boys are 8 years old right now, and so it would really be the end of elementary school and sort of what we consider middle school.
Right.
And then hopefully get back to the US in time for high school.
Yeah, it's such a tough age to get into a private school in South Africa, because that is their peak sort of enrollment is, you know, second, third, fourth grade. We had the exact same. And I think it's gotten worse. Like you said, the waiting lists have just exploded. So I'm sorry that there's no better news about Dainfern College, but all those schools that you listed are going to be great schools.
And keep phoning. Don't believe them. Don't believe a word they say. Like, if you want your kid to get in there, you can get your kid in there. It just might take time.
That's sort of what I've heard as well. So we're going to be we're going to bring as much in the way of recommendation letters and things like that with us as we can.
Yeah.
And the other ones I would maybe ask to look at is St. Stithians and St. Peter's.
Okay.
They're both up north and are both brilliant South African schools.
Even further to the north.
The other thing I was going to suggest you do is to go and spend time in the different areas. So you wanted to look at Four Ways Gardens. Obviously, I would go and spend some time in and around Four Ways. And then I would go to Parkhurst and Parkview and maybe Ilovo, Hyde Park, just so that because they're all lovely areas to visit anyway. And then you can get a good idea of the different neighborhoods around there. I've just realised, Beth, my goodness, you weren't going for a job at the British International School, were you?
No.
Okay, good.
Don't worry. The British school here is terrible as well. So it must
Interesting. That's so weird. You would think that they're great.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you about getting immersed into a South African school, but it would just be, we're already in the IB, the International Baccalaureate system. So we're in international schools already. So as much as the fact that we're, you know, it brings that whole expat bubble thing, I'd try my hardest to definitely not stay in that. So I definitely would be trying to immerse myself, you know, in everything local as possible. But that would just come with the job, you know. We would be in AISJ if we were in Johannesburg. So.
Oh, because your husband teaches there.
Yeah, so the job would bring us to AISJ. Yeah, so our kids would be going into like 3rd and 5th.
Yeah.
Next year at AISJ if we came.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But I would not want to be staying in that. You know, it's like in Zim. We were at Harare International School, but like all my friends were local friends, and I'm, you know. So yeah, I agree with what you're saying to this lady. If she's going to be there 5 years, to definitely be in a local.
It's just the turnover is so high at international schools. That's another thing. Your your children's friends would just be going the whole time. If you're there for 5 years, they'll be there for 1 or 2.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
All right. I think we've covered a ton. And I'm really grateful to you guys for attending. I think it was just awesome to talk to new expats. Keeps the thing alive for me.
Yeah, thank you. Cool. Perfect. Any other questions before we say goodbye? Now is your turn.
I had a quick question.
Yeah.
Hey.
Hi. Do you know of any kind of meetup groups for new parents?
Oh, now Meetup I have tried and it wasn't very good, but I think in the last year it's got much better. I got really frustrated with having my kids here in that there's a lot of support when you're pregnant, and then once you've had the child, it's like, off you go, bye, we never see you again. But it depends where you live. DISC, which is the Dane Fern International Club, have a toddler group, and there's loads and loads of toddler classes and swimming classes. So you can easily find parents that way, and then through kind of preschools and the like that way. Okay. Is
there a preschool you would recommend?
Where are you working?
Alovo.
Brilliant. There is so many amazing preschools in and around the Parks area. And in fact, I think there's lots of expats that live in and around here when they have small children, because the reason often expats move to Dane Fern is because they're sending their kids to the international schools. And so if you don't have to get your children into schools, then quite a few do live in and around this area. So there's loads and loads happening. We've sent our kids to Small World, and it's actually a reason why we've stayed in South Africa for so long, because it's just such a special and amazing place. The kids are outside playing all day. They take them to the park once a week to go run around and play in the forest. So it's a kind of forest school. But yeah, so we can have a whole different conversation about that. But yeah, the Small World. And then, a good website is Josie Kids to have a look at.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't look that pretty and it's a bit bulky, but it's got all the information on there.
Great.
Oops. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Cool. Anything else? No.
Thank you.
Okay, cheers guys.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks everyone.
Bye.
How do you actually
How do we get out?
leave meeting at the bottom right? There's a leave meeting button. Bye everyone.